Welcome students to class 7th. So we'll continue with our second chapter of history, and the name of the chapter is New Kings and Kingdoms. So many new dynasties emerges after 7th century. Map 1 shows the major ruling dynasties in different parts of the subcontinents between the 7th and 12th centuries. That means several major ruling dynasties emerged in different parts of the subcontinent during the period of 7th and 12th century. You can look at the map, all the dynasties, okay, that has emerged after the 7th century. The emergence of new dynasties. By the 7th century, there were big landlords or warriors, chiefs in different regions of the subcontinent. Existing kings often acknowledged them as their subordinates or samantas. They were expected to bring gifts for their kings or lords, be present at their court, and provide them with military support. As samantas gained power and wealth, they declared themselves to be Mahasamanta, Mahamandaleshwara, the great lord of a circular region, and so on. Sometimes they asserted their independence from their overlords. So, what happened? By the 7th century, there were big landlords or warriors, chiefs in different regions of the continent, and the existing kings often acknowledged them as their samantas. What they acknowledge them? They acknowledge them as samantas, or they can say subordinates. Then they were expected to bring gifts for their kings or overlords, and they provide them with military support. Then what happened? On such instance was that of the Rakshakutas in the Deccan. Initially, they were subordinates to the Cholukyas of Karnataka. In the mid-18th century, Dantidurta, a Rakshakutra chief, overthrew his Chalukya overlord and performed a ritual called Hiranyagarbha, literally the golden womb. When this ritual was performed with the help of Brahmins, it was thought to lead to the rebirth of sacrificer as a Kshatriya, even if he was not one by birth. So, for what happened? By the 7th century, there were big landlords and warriors, okay, in the different parts of the subcontinents. And what happened? The kings which were existing already before the 7th century were there. They acknowledged some people as their samantas and subordinates. So, existing kings were often acknowledged as samantas and subordinates, and they were expected to bring gifts and presents to the kings or overlords. So, and what happened? The main ruling dynasties were Gurjaras, Partriharas, Palas, and Rakshakutas, and Chahamanas in North India, and the Chola Pandya. So, what happened? They started giving another, we can say another, they are performing a ritual and giving a new emergence of new city. In other cases, men from enterprising females use their military skills to carve out kingdoms. For instance, the Kadamba, Mayursharam, and the Gurjara Patiharas, Harichandras were Brahmins who gave their traditions, professions, and took to arms, successfully establishing kingdom in Karnataka and Rajasthan respectively. So what happened? And then main ruling dynasties were emerges. What are they? They are Gurjara, Pratiharas, then Palas, then Rakshakutas and Chahamanas in North India, and the Chola Pandya and Cholukyas in South India. Administration in the kingdoms. Many of these kings adopted high-sounding titles such as Maharaja Adhiraja, which means great king, overlord of king, then Tribhuvana, Chakravartin, Lord of the Three Worlds, and so on. However, in spite of such claims, they often shared power with their Samantas as well as with associates of peasants, traders, and Brahmins. In each of these states, resources were obtained from the producer, that is, peasants, cattle keepers, artisans, who were often persuaded or compelled to surrender part of what they produced. Sometimes they were claimed as rent due to the lord, who asserted that he owned the land. A revenue was also collected from traders. So what happened? How was the administration in the kingdoms? The kings at apex adopt big titles. What kind of big titles? Like Maharaja Dhiraj, and what is the another? That is Tribhuvana Chakravartin. These were the titles that king adopted. Then what happened? The king shared power with their Samantas and with their associate. Who are they? They are the associates of peasants, traders, and Brahmins. Then resources were obtained from the producers, who were persuaded to surrender part of what they have produced. Then these resources were used to finance the king's establishment and construct temples and fort. And functionaries for collecting revenues were recruited for influential families. That means what happened? They collect as a rent. They collect as a rent. They say that that land belongs to the kingdom and they have to pay the rent for the same. Now read that 400 taxes. The inscription of the Cholas who ruled in Tamil Nadu refers to more than 400 terms for different kinds of taxes. The most frequent mentioned tax is Veti, taken not in cash but in the form of forced labor, and Kadamai or land revenue. There were also taxes on touching the house, the use of a ladder to climb palm trees, access on succession to family property, etc. That means what happened? It is the inscription. That means we have written, inscription means written something on a stone for keeping for record. So in the inscription of Cholas, who ruled in Tamil Nadu, they were referred different 400 terms of different kinds of taxes, in which one tax is mentioned, that is Veti, which is not taken in cash but in the form of labor. That means the person has to work as a labor for the kings. These resources were used to finance the king's establishment. As I already explained you that all these resources were used as a establishment for the king's establishment. Okay, that all the finance that these resources they collected from these people, that was used for the construction of temples and forts, and they also used to fight wars. In all this they use the, and for this they have appointed a functionaries for collecting revenues. Okay. The next, Prashistas and land grants. Prashistas contains details that may not be literally true, but they tell us how rulers wanted to depict themselves as valiant, victorious warriors. For example, they were composed by learned Brahmins who occasionally helped in the administrations. King often rewarded Brahmins by grants of land. These were recorded on copper plates which were given to those who received the land. You look at the pictures. This is the that means they are written on the copper plates regarding which land they have given to which Brahman. Usually for the 20th century was a long Sanskrit poem containing the history of kings who ruled over Kashmir. It was composed by an author named Kalhana. He used a variety of resources including inscriptions, documents, eyewitness accounts and earlier histories to write his account. Unlike the writers of Prashistas, he was often critical about rulers and their policies. So, that means Prashistas tell us how rulers want to depict themselves as valiant and victorious warriors, and the king often rewarded Brahmins by grants of land. These were recorded on copper plates. You can look at the picture and understand. This is the copper plate on which they keep record, which were given to the person who receive the land, so that they have a proof that this land belongs to that person. We will also read the boxes because it also contains some important information. The achievement of Nagabhatta. Many rulers describe their achievements in Prashastas. You read about the Prashastas of the Gupta ruler Samudragupta last year. One Prashasta written in Sanskrit and found in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh, described the exploit of Nagabhatta, a Pratihara king, as follows. The king of Andhra, Sindha, Vidarbha, part of Maharashtra and Kalinga, part of Orissa, fell before him even as he was a prince. He won a victory over Chakrayuddha, the ruler of Kanauj. He defeated the king of Vanga, Antra, Malava, Kirata and Turuksh, then Vatsa and Matsya. So these were all the achievements of Nagabhatta, it was found in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. This is just for your general knowledge. You should read all these boxes. And this box, what was given with the land? This is part of the Tamil section of the land granted given by the Cholas. This is a description which the land the Cholas have granted to the people. So this is the proof that this particular land has given to someone. Warfare for wealth. You may have noticed that each of these ruling dynasties were based in a specific region. At the same time, they tried to control other region. One particularly prized area was city of Kanauj in the Ganga Valley. For centuries, rulers belonging to the Gurjara, Pratihara, Rakshtrakuta and Pala dynasties fought for control over Kanauj because there were three parties in this long drawn conflicts. Historians often describe it as the three-party struggle. As we will see, rulers also tried to demonstrate their power and resources by building large temples. So when they attacked one another's kingdom, they often chose to target temples which were sometimes extremely rich. You can read more about this in chapter 5. One of the best known of such ruler is Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni, Afghanistan. He ruled from 997 to 1030 and extended control over parts of Central Asia, Iran and the northwestern part of the subcontinent. He raided the subcontinent almost every year. His targets were wealthy temples, including that of Somnath, Gujarat. Much of the wealth Mahmud carried away was used to carry a splendid capital city at Ghazni. So, what happened for centuries? Gurjar Patiharas and Rakshasutras and Palas dynasty fought for control over Kanauj. They were fighting for the victory over control over Kanauj. So what in history historians describe it as a three-party struggle. The long drawn conflict is known as three-party struggle. The question can also come in exam that what do you mean by three-party struggle, in which three parties were involved. Then what happened? Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni raided the subcontinent 17 times. So he raided the subcontinent 17 times between 1000 to 1025 AD. His sole purpose was, what was the sole purpose? That was to plunder the wealth of India. And where he raided, he looted temples like Somnath, Gujarat, and Muhammad entrusted a scholar named that is Al-Biruni to write an account of the subcontinents. Other kings also engaged in warfare included the Chamanas, later known as Chauhans, who ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer. They attempted to expand their control to the west and to the east, where they were opposed by the Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Gahadwalas of western Uttar Pradesh. The best known Chahamanas rulers were Prithviraj, who defeated an Afghan ruler named Sultan Muhammad Ghori in 1191, but lost to him the very next year in 1192. In 1192. So what happened? Chauhans were also engaged in conflicts with Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Gahadavalas of Western. Okay. Then Prithviraj was a very popular Chauhan ruler who defeated Afghan ruler Ghori, but in the next year he was lost to him. A closer look, the Cholas. Now we'll understand about this dynasty, that is Cholas, from Urayur to Tanjore. How did the Cholas rise to power? A minor chiefly family known as the Mattarayar held power in the Kaveri Delta. They were subordinate to the Pallava king of Kanjipuram, Vijayalaya, who belongs to the ancient chiefly family of the Cholas from Udayyur, captured the delta from Mattarayar in the middle of the 9th century. He built the town of Tanjore and the temple of a goddess Nishumbha Sudhini there. So what happened? In this, it is given a description about Cholas, how they emerged. Cholas were from a small family of Udayyur. They were from a small family, and the successor of Vidyayala conquered neighboring regions, and the king grew in size and power. What happened? The successors of Vijayalaya conquered neighboring regions, and the kingdom grew in size and power. Then Raja was considered the most powerful Cholas ruler and expanded control over most of this area. See, you can read the text. Raja considered the most powerful Chola ruler and became king in 985 and expanded control over most of this area. He also recognized the administration of the empire. Raja's son Rajendra I continued his policies and even raided the Ganga Valley, Sri Lanka and countries of Southeast Asia, developing a navy for this expedition. So Cholas were very big temple builders than two famous temples. So what happened? Firstly the Raja was considered the most powerful Chola ruler, and as he expanded control over most of these areas, then his son Rajendra conquered Sri Lanka and countries of Southeastern Asia. Splendid temples and bronze structure. Students, we are continuing with the Cholas. So the big temples of Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram, built by Raja and Rajendra, are architectural and sculptural marvels. Chola temples often become the nuclei of settlements which grew around them. These were centers of craft production. Temples were also endowed with land by rulers as well as by others. The producer of this land went into maintaining all the specialists who worked at the temple and very often lived near it. Priest, garland makers, cooks, sweeper, musicians, dancers, etc. In other words, temples were not only place of worship, they were the hub of economical, social and cultural life as well. Among the craft association with temples, the making of bronze image was the most distinctive. Chola bronze images are considered among the finest in the world, while most images were of deities. Sometimes images were made of devotees as well. So this is about the temples that were made by the Cholas. So as they were the big temple builders, Cholas were a big temple builders. Two famous temples were that are Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram. These are the two famous temples that were built by Cholas. Agriculture was okay. Then what is the description is given that the place that temple is not just for the worshipping purpose, that is also used as a hub for economical, social and cultural life also. And even who all live there near it, they are the priests, dancers, musicians, sweeper, cook and garland makers. And among the craft, what was the main purpose? That is the making of bronze images, which was the most distinctive, means very different work they have done, that is of bronze images. And the images were of mostly of deities and devotees also. You can look at the picture. This is the Chola bronze sculpture. Notice how carefully it is decorated to find out much how the image was made. See chapter 6. So in chapter 6 you will be understanding that how this bronze sculpture is made. Now let's go through the agriculture and irrigation of Cholas. Many of the achievements of the Cholas were made possible through new developments in agriculture. Look at map 2 again. Notice that the river Kaveri branches off into several small channels before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. You just go through the map, second map. Look, the river branches off into several small channels before emptying into the Bay of Bengal. These channels overflow, frequently depositing fertile soil on their bank. Water from the channels also provide the necessary moisture for agriculture, particularly the cultivation of rice. So what happened, as the water sometimes overflow from the small channels of Kaveri, it left the fertile soil and make the land more fertile, which is good mostly for the agriculture and especially for the cultivation of rice. Although agriculture had developed earlier in other parts of Tamil Nadu, it was only from the 5th to 6th century that this area was open up for large-scale cultivation. Forests had to be cleared in some regions, land has to be leveled in other areas. In the delta region, embankments had to be built to prevent flooding and channels had to be constructed to carry water to the field. In many areas, 2 crops were grown in a year. So this is the description about the agriculture of Cholas. Their agriculture was very well developed among them, as with various methods of irrigations, and they have also prepared for the embankment so that it can prevent flooding, and channels can be constructed so that there will be proper irrigation system and water will be available in amendments. That means water will be available in sufficient amount for the cultivations, and they were cultivating the crops in 2 times in a year. That means 2 crops were grown in a year. In many cases, it was necessary to water crops artificially. A variety of methods were used for irrigations. In some areas, wells were dug. In other parts, huge tanks were constructed to collect rainwater. Remember that irrigation works require planning, organizing, labor and resources. Maintaining this work and deciding on how water is to be shared, most of the new rulers as well as people living in villages took an active interest in this activity. So what happened? How they get the good achievement in agriculture field, as they were very planned and they know how to do a good agriculture. So they have cultivated a very good method for cultivation, as they had prepared the embankments for preventing floods and making the channels so that fields can get the proper amount of water. And they also work for the saving of rainwater, that is artificial irrigation. That means artificial for water to crop artificially. That means they have dug wells and prepared some another tanks for collecting of rainwater, and through this planning and organizing they have maintained a work and get a good level for the very well developed for the agriculture purpose. The administration of the empire. How was the administration organized? Settlements of peasants known as become prosperous with the spread of irrigation agriculture. Groups of such villages formed large units called Nadu. The village council and the Nadu performed several administration functions including dispensing justice and collecting tax. So associates of trades, which was known as Nadu, they have made a, that means settlements of peasants called, or we can say they became more prosperous with the spread of irrigation and agriculture, and they prepared a council. The village council and the Nadu performed several administrative functions. Rich peasants of the Velala caste exercised considerable control over the affairs of the Nadu under the supervision of central Chola government. So what happened? The rich peasants were the person who are having the control over the affairs of Nadu, which is a formed of large units. They are the groups of small such villages formed for large units, that is called the Nadu, and for their control they have rich peasants of Velala caste who have a control over the affairs of Nadu under the supervision of central Chola government. The Chola kings gave some rich landowners titles like Mavindavelam, a Velam or peasant serving 3 kings, Arayar chief, as maker of respect, and entrusted them with important office of the state at the center. So what they have given some destinations to these people. What are they? That is the Mavindavelam and Arayar. This is the post they have given for their respect and entrusted them with, and he also given an important office of the state at the center. Types of land. Chola's inscription mentioned several categories of land. This is a categories of land they have divided, that is Velan Vagai, Brahmadeya, Salabogha, Devadana, Trunamuttukani and Polichandanam. These are the land, these are the types of land. These were encrypted in the Cholas, encrypted by the Cholas. This is also again an important point you should remember. We have seen that Brahmins often receive land grants or Brahmadeya. As a result, a large number of Brahmins settlers emerged in the Kaveri Valley as in other parts of South India. So what happened? As we have already read earlier, that Brahmins were offered lands as a grants, or we can say Brahmadeya. So what happened? As a result, what happened? Large numbers of Brahman settlements emerges in the Kaveri Valley, okay, and in other parts of South India. Each Brahmadeya was looked after by an assembly or sabha of prominent Brahma landholder. So what happened? Each the land which is allotted to the Brahmans, it was looked by the assembly, or we can say sabha of prominent Brahmana landholders. These assemblies work very effectively. Their decisions were recorded in details in inscription. Earlier we know that there is no any other technology like as we are having today. So they record in inscriptions. So all the records and decisions were recorded in inscriptions, often on the stones walls of temples. So where the inscription is written, that is on the walls of temples. Associations of traders known as Nagrama also occasionally perform administration functions in town. So association of traders known as Nagrama also perform administrative functions in the towns. And the inscriptions which is also mentioned about Sabha. The Sabha has a separate community to look after irrigation works, gardens and temples. Inscriptions from Vitramemur in Chilangiput district, Tamil Nadu provide details of the way which the Sabha was organized. So another community which is formed, which gives information about the Sabha which was organized. The Sabha has separate community to look after irrigation work, temples and gardens. Name of those eligible to be members of these communities were written on a small ticket of palm leaf. This ticket were put into an earthen pot from which a young boy was asked to take out the ticket one by one for each community. So how they are keeping the name of those eligible members of the community? They keep it in a pot written on the palm leaf, and one boy is asked to take out the ticket one by one for each community. This is the how they are ruling their, means how they are performing their duties. Inscription and text. You just go through this inscriptions, so your understanding will be more clear. It is just nothing, it's just an inscription about particular kingdom or kings. So during the period of 7th and 12th century, many dynasties emerges in different parts of the continents, and the new rulers were previously the big landlords or warrior works under the existing kings as subordinates, or we can say samantas, and they gradually gained power and wealth, and thereafter declared themselves to be mahasamantas. Then what happened? They were now independent landlords, we can say. Then we read about Dantidurta and Rakshakuta chief, which overthrew his Cholakya's overlord and performed a ritual which is known as Hirangarbhi. It was done in order to transfer one identity as Kshatriya, even though he was not a by birth he is born not, but by doing this ritual they transform one identity as Kshatriya. Some other landlords like Kadamba, Mayursharam and Gurjara Patihara, Harichandra, Brahmins by birth used their military skills to establish their kingdoms and Karnataka and Rajasthan. Students, I am just revising so that we can understand what we have learned. Then many of these kings adopted high sounding titles. What are they? Maharaja Dhiraj, then Tribhuvana Chakravartin. Though they shared power with their Samantas they are sharing their power with Samantas as well as with associates of peasants, traders and Brahmins. The producers, the peasants, cattle keepers, artisans were the main feeders of these states. Then the land was owned by the lords, and so the producers are compelled to pay the rent to the owner, whereas traders were to pay the revenue to the lords. This is the compulsory taxes. These resources were used to finance the establishment of the kings, then constructions of temples and fort, and also for fighting wars, which were also done to expand the resources through fighting and plundering and acquiring land and finding trade routes. Then what happened? What we read about Prashastas were composed by learning Brahmins in praise of the rulers. It was used to depict the ruler as valiant, victorious and warriors. Then we read about Brahmins were also rewarded by grants of land, and some written on the copper leaves they have given that leaves they have given, so that they can they have proved that this land belongs to that particular Brahman. Then Kalana's long poem in Sanskrit recorded the history of king who ruled over Kashmir. And what else we read? That about Kanauj, which was prized area in the Ganga Valley. There was a three-party struggle among Gurjara, Pratihara and Rakshakuta and Pala dynasties over Kanauj. There was a three-party struggle. Then we read about Sultan Muhammad Ghazni of Afghanistan, who extended his control over the Central Asia, then northwestern part of the subcontinent and Iran. Then during his attack, he targeted on wealthy temples, and one of the temple of Gujarat, that is temple of Somnath, he was the most prominent. Then we read about Chauhans. Earlier they were known as Chahamanas, later known as Chauhans. They ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer and had expanded their control to the west and the east, and they also opposed by the Cholukyas of Gujarat and Ghadavlas of Uttar Pradesh. Then we read about Prithviraj, who defeated Muhammad Ghazni in 1191 but lost in the next year only. Then we read about Raj Raja, who was a very powerful Chola ruler, and later his son added glory to his father. The big temple of Tanjavur and Gangaikonda Cholapuram, built by Raja and Rajendra, are architectural marvels, and these temples of Cholas were the nucleus of settlements as they grew around them. They were also center of craft production. Okay, bronze sculptures, as you look at the pictures in your book, that is of bronze sculpture. And these temples were not only for the purpose of worship, but they were the hub of economic, social and cultural life as well. And also regarding the agriculture, it has also contributed much to the achievement of Cholas, as agriculture has developed earlier in other parts of the Tamil Nadu. It was only farm of the 5th and 6th century that this area was opened for the large scale cultivation. Then also they prepared about the embankments were built so that they can prevent floods, and channels were constructed to carry water to the fields so that crops can be grown easily, and they grow 2 crops in a year. And varieties of method they use, like digging of wells, placing huge tanks for irrigation purpose. Then regarding the administrations of the empire was also well organized, as they have prepared some communities and sabhas so that they can look each other and work can be done very effectively. Then association of traders known as Nagaramas also occasionally performed administration functions in towns. So students, with this our chapter is completed. Do you know the meaning of Samantas, the subordinates of kings? Okay. Samantas mean the subordinate of kings, and we also read about Mahasamantas. That means the Samantas who gain power and wealth, they declare themselves as Mahasamantas. Then high sounding titles were the Maharajadhiraj, Tribhuvana Chakravartin. Okay. Then who were the Prashistas? A literary composition often in verse written in praise of the ruler, depicting him as valiant, victorious and warrior. It was mainly done by the Brahmins. Okay. Then Nadu. What is the meaning of Nadu? We read in the text, that is group of earths, that is village form a large unit. We called this at Nadu. Okay. So students, just read the text so that you can get more clear clarification. We'll continue with our exercise part in the next video.